What's going on, my Central Units? I'm the Sentiment here, so back again with another WCW pay-per-view review. I know you're thinking Halloween is over, it's no more, it's in our review mirrors. We're in the month of November now. Hey, it's Halloween in this video, so grab your favorite beverage, grab your leftover candy, and enjoy my review of WCW Halloween Havoc 1998. So this show was at the MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada on the 25th of October 1998. The attendance of the show was 10,663. Halloween Havoc 98 received about 310,000 pay-per-view buys, downgrade than the previous year's Halloween Havoc show from 1997. That show received about 405,000 pay-per-view buys. The main event of that show was Hogan and Piper inside of the cage, Age in the cage. That match took place a few weeks after Shawn Michaels vs. The Undertaker, the first ever Hell in a Cell match. Also, you got the debut of Kane. I reviewed Halloween Havoc 97 2 years ago on this channel. Go and check it out. So the commentators for Halloween Havoc 98 are Tony Schiavone, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Mike Tenay. So this show last month marks the 25th anniversary of Halloween Havoc 98. This show is memorable for bad things. Technically a really bad match. The WrestleMania 6 rematch between Hogan versus the Warrior. And a really good match in the main event. Unfortunately, you never got a chance to see it if you watched the pay-per-view back then on your TV because it was too long. We'll get to the main event later on in this show. I like the entrance, you know, the pay-per-view set of Halloween Havoc 98. You got like the Demon holding the pumpkin. That was really good. You know, it's a shame like not AEW, but mostly in WWE, you know, they don't really do a lot of pay-per-view sets, you know, it's just typical a Titantron, and that's it. So stripped down compared to whether it's 20, 25 years ago or 10 years ago, you know, they decorate their pay-per-view sets, you know. It's just what it is, but yeah, that's got to be one of the best pay-per-view sets, you know, WCW ever did, you know, for Halloween Havoc. With the demon holding the pumpkin, you got the Tombstone Titantron. That was good. So, and also, I done my research on the show that I think it might not be the first pay-per-view. I think it's one of the first pay-per-view of the Nitro Girls. You know, it was new back then with the fit models dancing. You know, I think one of them was soon to be Tigress. There was a lot of segments with the Nitro Girls. I don't want to get into this in this video. So yeah, like I said, this show is memorable for Hogan Warrior, the WrestleMania 6 rematch, and the main event you never got to see if you watch it on TV back then because it was too long. Anyway, so the first match to kick off Halloween Havoc 1998. This is for the WCW Television Championship. Chris Jericho defending the belt against Raven. Raven, he's a single star at this moment in time because at this moment in time the flock has been disbanded. Raven on a losing streak. It's really bad, but you know, maybe it's like, yeah, not all factions can last forever. So anyway, I done my research why Jericho won the belt in August. You know, Jericho's gimmick was over at the time, being the conspiracist, you know, the leader of the Jerichoholics. You know, this was, you know, he kind of blew off the rivalry between Dean Malenko and himself. So Jericho won the belt in August. He defeats he defeats Stevie Ray for the belt on the 10th of August episode of Nitro of that year. Anyway, so before the start of this match, you know, Raven, he said, "What about me? What about Raven?" He said like, he's not gonna wrestle in this match. You know, wasn't ready. You know, he's not really prepared. You know, he kind of ends it. He ends it with his, every time he cut a promo, he ends with his lines, "Quoth the Raven, nevermore." So Raven left. Jericho says, you know, "I don't want to wrestle either." He's doing it for the Jerichoholics. And he called Raven a loser. because he lost his flock members, and the match begins. So Raven came back to the ring. The match began. This is a heel versus heel match because both Jericho and Raven are heels. But I think the fans were really get behind Jericho because of his gimmick at the time. He was so red hot at the time. You know, he turned heel in the start of 1998. Anyway, I think it was a really good match. You know, there's some good chemistry between Jericho and Raven. Like Jericho, I don't really call him a high flyer. He does sometimes some high flying spots, but Raven is more like a brawler. I think one more of the match, you know, Raven did like he kind of run towards the still steps and hit Jericho with a drop kick. You know, yeah, I've never seen Raven doing drop kicks before. You know, he's heavy. You know, I'm not saying he's super fat, but he's kind of like in that 200-pound mark. Compared to Jericho, he's in that 220-pound mark. But both styles are kind of different. Anyway, so it was a really good match, you know. Jericho kicked out of Raven's even flow finisher. It's a DDT. In the end, you got, I think it was Chris Kanyon trying to came to the rescue, trying to came for the aid of Raven, because at this moment in time, the flock is finished, it's disbanded. That was after the end of the flock Raven Perry Saturn feud. Anyway, so Jericho knocked Kanyon off the ring apron. I think Raven was going for like his finisher again, but instead Jericho counted into the Lion Tamer. Raven tap out. Jericho won this match and retained the television championship. It was a good it's a good opener to kick off the pay-per-view. It's very weird and interesting that, you know, in this time period, you know, ever since I started reviewing WCW pay-per-views in that certain time period in the Monday Night War era, like they always kick off their pay-per-views with cruiserweights, you know, but this time not that much. You know, a great example, they open it with Saturn versus Raven. But yeah, it's just proven like maybe change things up a little bit. You know, you don't have to have a Nitro or Thunder, even a pay-per-view kick off with a cruiserweight match. You know, I think both work well in the ring. I don't really do. I give it like 3 stars. It was a fun match. You know, get the crowd going for the rest of the show. And yeah, it's a shame for Raven and Jericho. It's funny, like it's sad. Like the following year, they end up leaving the company. You know, Raven going back to ECW, Jericho end up going to the WWF. You know, it's a shame. Like, you know, they're kind of like young. You know, I wish they'd do more. It's just, you know, mostly with Jericho. Jericho should have done more. But instead, you know, it's just WCW being awkward. You know, focus on the older guys like the Hogan and the Flair and Kevin Nash, instead of focus on building the younger talent. But that's just me. So yeah, it was a fun way to kick off Halloween Havoc 98. It's a fun opener between Jericho and Raven. So the next match, we got Wrath versus Meng. Wrath is the former Adam Bomb in the WWF, and the future Brian Clark when he ended up teaming up with Brian Adams when he was part of Chronic. That'll be in WCW in the year 2000. The match was okay. I thought this was going to be a bad match. No, it was an okay, passable match. The fans were chanting boring. I don't really call it boring. It was a decent match. I don't think this match, there's no build to this. I forgot to mention this, you know, in the Jericho-Raven match, this is the rematch, because they had that match on Raw Thunder weeks before the pay-per-view. I forgot to mention that, but this is just like a bonus match between Wrath and Meng without any build, no storyline. It's just filling up the card. Anyway, the match was okay. I think it worked fine. I think Wrath, you know, Brian Clark, I think he's very underrated in my opinion. You know, like, he's got a good body, he's got a good physique, you know, he's built like a Brit Shithouse, you know. It's just, I'm not saying not everyone could be the top guy, it's just what it is, man. Very underrated. That's just me, but anyway, Raf got the victory, hit Meng with the meltdown. It's basically a running power slam for the win. It was an okay match. I think they should have saved this on Nitro. This is a match you probably see on Nitro or Thunder, not on your pay-per-view at the time you spend a lot of money. So moving on to the next match. So the next match, we got Disco Inferno taking on Juventud Guerrera. Winner faced the Cruiserweight Champion Billy Kidman later on the show for the Cruiserweight Championship. Match was good. Not on the same level as Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero from Halloween Havoc the previous year, but it was a fun match, you know. You can tell like Disco can hang with the luchadors, you know. Luchadors are more of the high flyers. Disco is not known for doing the high flying moves, you know. I call him a technical wrestler, but I don't really call him like doing move off the top rope. He does it sometimes like doing an axe handle, but not like doing a drop kick, doing the flashy pan stuff like the guys like Rey Mysterio and a Juventud Guerrera, an Eddie Guerrero, a Psychosis, them lot. Anyway, Disco really shocked. It really shocked the fans. You know, I don't really call it shock the world. That's too much. You know, he got a shock win over Juventud Guerrera, and also. In this match, he was doing the Macarena. It was kind of funny. I'll get to more of Disco shortly. He hit Juventud Guerrera with the a jumping pile driver for the win. Disco advanced to face Kidman later on for the Cruiserweight Championship. Disco's very underrated, man. It's a shame he never wrestled in WWE. You know, he is the only guy, one of the few wrestlers never wrestled in WWE. I think he'll probably do well in WWE. Like, great example with the Cruiserweight division on SmackDown, you know. I think he will do well in that division, you know. Yeah, I understand why people... I don't understand why people do not like Disco. You know, Glenn Gilberti. I think, like I say, I think he's an underrated worker. I think Disco Inferno is basically an underrated character, in my opinion. Maybe it has to do with his shoot promos in his post-WCW career, after WCW went out of business, bought out with the WWF. Maybe, but that's another story for another time. I don't want to get into this in this video, but besides that, I think it was a really good match. You know, not like a 4-star classic, you know, it was a fun match. Let's move on to the next match. So the next match, we got Alex Wright versus Fit Finlay. Originally, it was supposed to be a triple threat match. You know, I've done my research for this review of the show that the original match was supposed to be a three-way match. Alex Wright, Fit Finlay, and the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. Unfortunately, Davey Boy Smith is no longer with WCW. He wrestled his final match with the company. I think it was against Meng. This was the day before the pay-per-view at Saturday Night Main Event. He got fired. Before we get to the whole fire part, you know, he suffered a back infection. I think it was a staph infection in his back. Yeah, he injured his back the previous month at Fall Brawl. It was a tag team match. I think it was him and Neidhart taking on Alex Wright and Disco Inferno. Davey Boy, took like a bump onto the Warrior's trap door that caused of a staph infection on his spine. And as a result, he ended up getting fired from the company. Yeah, I feel sorry for Davey Boy Smith. Even though at the time, in 1998, he was not really doing anything in WCW in his second run with the company. Compared to his first run, he ended up like in the world title picture. But he came in 1998 because of the protests of the Montreal Screwjob. Yeah, he didn't do anything noticeably, but seeing getting his back injured and getting fired as a result. Yeah, he took a double whammy of this, you know, got hurt and then as a result got fired in the process, you know. I wish WCW really give him compensation, you know, pay for his surgery, something like that, you know, his treatment of his back. So yeah, that was the end of the Bulldog's time in WCW. He ended up going back to the WWF in the following year in 1999. His first match back in the company was the Six Pack Challenge. I reviewed Unforgiven 99. I might do an update of that. Actually, no. I might. Who knows? But he was in that 6-pack challenge at Unforgiven 99 the following year. You know, he would be super high on morphine. That's a. You just look up on the internet, or get if you got the documentary of the Heart Soul, the Hart family documentary. You learn more information about Davey Boy's addiction of morphine. Anyway, so that was the end of the Bulldogs' time in WCW. So it's a one-on-one match between Alex Wright and Fit Finlay. A battle of two European wrestlers because Alex Wright's from Germany, Fit Finlay's from Northern Ireland. I was giving this a 3-star match, you know, but unfortunately it's not. People chanting boring. I don't really call it a boring match. Maybe it has to do, like, it's not fast-paced, not on the same level as Cruiserweight match from the previous match on the show, but it was more slower. It was more of a techno style thing. Even though, like, Alex Wright, he's kind of like a high flyer. Finlay's more of a techno style brawler. He's the Belfast brawler. I don't think their chemistry kind of clicked in this match. I'm not saying this match was boring, but it's a bit mediocre. I feel like the Wrath and Meng match from the second match of the show, I feel like this is a match that belong on Nitro, Thunder, or Saturday Night Main Event. Not on your pay-per-view. At the time you spend a lot of money. I don't think there's any build to this. You know, it's just filling the card for the show. Anyway, so in the end, Alex Wright got the victory, hit Finlay with the net breaker, and that was it. Alex Wright, man, another underrated worker. His gimmick is similar to Disco's. He ended up becoming Berlin the following year, man. I wish he was Berlin. I think the Berlin character, in my opinion, was not utilized properly. It was utilized, but they kind of gave it up, you know. It's kind of working, you know, because he speaks his native German. It was a very underrated, very, 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 very forgettable, underrated foreign heel gimmick, you know. It's better than that Disco and typical Disfunda Kid gimmick. I think it really, like, I don't know. I don't really hate Alex Wright. I think he's a bit, I don't know, his gimmick is a bit, I'm not saying gay, but it's just kind of like, it's not going nowhere with that gimmick, you know. I think they missed the boat, like, allowing him becoming Berlin. I think he'll be, you know, it's a shame. They never really pulled the trigger of having him be in Berlin even much longer. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. So let's move on to the next match of the card. So the next match, we've got Saturn versus Lodi. Lodi used to be part of the Flock. Why they put this on the pay-per-view? At the time, you spend a lot of money. Right now, we're in the era of streaming service. We got the WWE Network and also Peacock. We got Impact Plus. Anyway, Lodi, I don't know. I'm guessing Lodi is WCW's version of Sign Guy and Dudley of ECW. They both carry signs. You know, before Sign Guy and Dudley becoming Paul Heyman's kayfabe brother. That'll be in the year 2000. Anyway, that's my guess of it. So, Saturn came out wearing a vest. It was a chain vest and a beret. And I've done my research of Perry Saturn's past. You know, before he was a pro wrestler, I think he spent most of the time in the army. I understand why have Saturn came out wearing the beret. You know, if you do your research. He did serve with the army, the U.S. Army. Yeah, it was a good nod to his past. The match, like I say, no business on a pay-per-view. Lodi was being the chicken shit heel, you know. I think it was holding like signs that says Lodi loves Texas, blah blah blah. He didn't really say blah blah blah, but it's just kind of like his shtick. In the end, Lodi got Saturn got the victory. Hit Lodi with the Death Valley Driver. That was it. Like, yeah, Saturn came off feuding with the Flock and Raven. And after that, he ended up being part of the Revolution. I think it was the Revolution. That was Dean Malenko's group before he ended up going to the WWF in the year 2000 with him, referring to Saturn, Benoit, Malenko, and Guerrero from the Radicals. That's another story another time. Anyway, let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is for the Cruiserweight Championship. Billy Kidman defending the belt against Disco Inferno. Disco defeats Juventud Guerrera earlier on the show to get a shot at the Cruiserweight Championship. Saturn, he's doing stuff. He's doing good. He's doing things on his own ever since the Flock disbanded. This is his first reign as the Cruiserweight Champion. He won the belt the previous month in September. Check it. Yeah, Saturn. Yeah, I was right. He won the belt on the 14th of September 1998 episode of Nitro against Juventud Guerrera. So he's doing well, thriving well on his own ever since, like I said, the Flock has disbanded. The match was good. I think with Lodi, not Lodi, I keep saying Lodi, with Disco, my apologies, with Disco, I think he hangs with guys who's actually super, more of the high-flying guys, like with the Hoovies, and, I don't really it's funny, like, they end up it's funny, like, in the previous match, Hoovie and Disco, they end up being future members of the Filthy Animals. That'll be in the year 2000. I think he did fight against Rey Mysterio. I'm not too sure. This is like 90s, I was around, but I was a baby. But anyway, the match was good. It's a shame the match was only like 9 minutes in both the Disco Hoovie and the Disco Kidman match. They're about 9-10 minutes, it's just what it is. But the match was fun, Like, Disco is very underrated as a worker, I don't really find him annoying. Like I said, I think he's a very underrated character. He doesn't really get any respect, anyway, but he, like, this match and his match against Hoovie from early on the show, he ended up doing the Macarena. It was popular at the time. Hey, Macarena. Anyway, he was going for the jumping power driver, but instead Kidman hit, I think he hit like a power bomb or a power driver of himself, then hit the shooting star press on Disco to win his match and retain the Cruiserweight Championship. He ended up traveling back and forth with the belt to Juventud Guerrera. He won the belt in November, and then he won the belt back. I think it was at World War III. I think. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on it, but it was a fun match. I think both matches were good. Not on the same level of like Ray and Eddie from the previous year's Halloween Havoc, but it was a good match. It was fun. I think like the mid-late 90s, that was the golden period of Cruiserweight wrestling. It was new back in the day. Right now, people complain about it, that's another story for another time. Don't want to get into it, but it was a fun match. I wish I had more time. I don't say it'd be a bomb burner, but it'd be like, I think it's just like cut for time. I think like in the Disco Hoovie, Disco Kidman, I think they made most for what it is of those minutes. So moving on to the next match. This is for the WCW World Tag Team Championship. You got Scott Steiner and the Giant represent the NWO, defending the belt against Rick Steiner, the brother of Scott Steiner, and Buff Bagwell. I don't understand why Steiner and the Giant is the future Big Show, by the way, are the tag team champions. I done my research. In that time period in 1990, I'm on Wikipedia right now. I think I went past it. So it's funny. Like Sting and the Giant, and then I found it. It was the original holders of the tag team titles were Scott Hall and the Giant. They won the belt on the 20th of July, 1998 episode of Nitro. And then all of a sudden, I don't know why they didn't have Scott Hall and Giant defending the belts on the show against Rick Steiner and Buff Bagwell. I'll get to more of that shortly, but it's just Steiner and Scott Hall are the tag team champions. Yeah, I thought Scott Hall's injured, but no, he's wrestling on the show. I don't want to get into it, so this is still in this rivalry between brother versus brother, the battle between the two Steiners, Rick and Scott. At February, at Super Bowl 8, the Steiners were defending the tag team titles against the Outsiders. Scott turned on his brother Rick to join the NWO, becoming like the 500 member of that group, and he became Big Papa Pump. He kind of died. He cut his hair, dyed his hair, bleached blonde, grow a goatee. This is before he ended up saying these like crazy shit, and becoming the poster boy of Botchamania, Anyway, but Rick Steiner feuding with his brother Scott for months now. It's funny, like, on the build up to this is before you had this one episode on Nitro. You've got, Brad Dourif, the guy plays, the guy for the Chucky in the Child's Play films, appeared on Nitro because at the time because they're promoting the Bride of Chucky film. I saw that film years ago. That was really good. Some people crap on that. When WWE did like the stuff with Chucky and Liv Morgan, people shit on that. I was like, why are you shitting on that? I kind of like that. Like that. I've seen that. Chucky killed Liv Morgan because Liv said in an interview that like she liked being got killed by Chucky. I don't know why. So WCW did that with Rick and Chucky, but with WWE, this is a quarter of a century later with Chucky and Liv. People shit on it. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. People are fickle these times. I think like I prefer the Liv Chucky thing more than Chucky and Rick Steiner because it's just Chucky promoting the film instead of coming out stabbing Rick Steiner. But anyway, so the start of this show, you had Buff Bagwell. By the way, this is Buff Bagwell's first match back since the neck injury. He said to Rick, "Can he be your tag team partner?" He's sick of taking Scott Steiner's shit. So Rick accepts, Buff Bagwell's, he kind of choose Buff Bagwell to be his partner. And also later on the show, JJ Dillon. I think it's weeks later or week before this. This is in a certain time period. I seen that, like Scott Steiner, being, saying these crazy shit, going after JJ Dillon, so, calling Roddy Piper a skirt-wearing queer. That's like, wow. It will never fly in today's society, in today's wrestling landscape, but anyway, so JJ Dillon informed Scott Steiner that the tag team titles were on the line, and also if Rick, referring to Rick Steiner, if Rick Steiner beats you have to face your brother Rick afterwards. Anyway, the match between Rick Steiner, Buff Bagwell versus Scott Steiner and the Giant. Okay match. It was passable for what it is. I knew this is going to be a swerve. I'll get to the swerve shortly. You got the heels beating down Rick Steiner, and then Scott did the hot tag towards Buff Bagwell. And then the swerve, you had Buff Bagwell turn on Rick Steiner. The teasing like Buff Bagwell left the NWO, but instead he's still part of the group. He left, walked out. So the tag team match for the tag team titles become a handicap match for the tag team titles. So anyway, Rick Steiner managed to get the victory, hit the Bulldog off the top rope onto the Giant for the win, and then suddenly we got the Improv 2 match between Rick Steiner versus Scott Steiner. I'll get to the tag team match later on after this match. The match sucked. I fucking hate the match between Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner. They're starting to have an okay match. People want to see Rick really getting revenge on his brother Scott because Scott Steiner turned on his brother Rick, break up the Steiner brothers, join the NWO. People want to see that. So yes, Rick beating up his brother Scott. Then we got the NWO appeared. You got Vincent, You got the Giant appeared, after his match. No, that was he appeared. I can't remember. It's been 2 days since I've watched the show. Anyway, so you got members of the NWO. You got you got Stevie Ray, Vincent, members of the NWO appear to the ring trying to help Scott Steiner getting his win over his brother Rick. Anyway, you got Stevie Ray. Why he's part of the NWO beats me. I'll get to that shortly. Okay, I'll talk about it later on. Actually, so basically, you got Stevie Ray gives Scott the slapjack and hits the referee. No, I can't remember. This is 2 days ago. My memory's a bit phased. One hit the referee with the slapjack. Rick kicked out of the slapjack attempt by Scott or Buff Bagwell, and then Scott. I'm referring to Scott Steiner, not Scott Hall. Scott Steiner, hit the Frankensteiner onto Rick Steiner. Rick kicked out of the Frankensteiner. In the end, he got the victory over his brother Rick. Scott, my apologies, man. It's getting confusing because I'm speaking too fast, by the way. But anyway, so Rick hit the bulldog off the top rope onto Scott Steiner, his brother, to win this match. And funny, they retained the tag team title belts because he won the belt in the previous match. Even why the tag team title belts is on the line, I don't get it, man. Like, why could they just done this like this? If Rick Steiner wins the tag team match, he will face his brother one-on-one. That was it. Why the tag team belts were on the line, I don't know. Don't want to get into it, It's just like, why? It's just like they did it the previous year. I think it was on a pay-per-view that it was a singles match for the tag team title belts. It's really shitting on the belt. Tag team means a tag team, two on two, not one-on-one. I don't want to get into it. I'm losing a bit of marbles, losing my brain cells discussing about it. I think it was no payoff between Rick and Scott. It should be like they break up a lot of tag teams. I'll get to more of that later on, but that would be a bad mistake. But there was no payoff between Rick and Scott. I think it's the following year they end up reunited, or maybe 2 years later. But it's just no build up to this. I get with Rick. I think Rick is in that Marty Jannetty role. I used the phrase Marty Jannetty. Wrestlers, one end up doing well as a single star, the other end up having a mediocre career. I think Rick he's never known becoming a single. He's not really a singles wrestler, He kind of flopped in that department compared to Scott. Scott ended up becoming a future WCW World Champion. He kind of thrived well, but they're kind of testing the waters. But in my opinion, I think they broke up the Steiners. That was the bigged mistake, too early. Even though they've been in the tag team for almost a decade, end up reunited in the final years of WCW, and then years later in TNA. But I just never understand why they did that. I get it's testing the waters, but Rick's new tag team partner is Kenny Chaos. I think this will be the start of introducing Buff Bagwell's real life. And also, speaking of Buff Bagwell, during that Rick Steiner Scott Steiner match, he dressed up like Bill Clinton. He was wearing the Bill Clinton mask because at the time he was the current president of the United States of America. It's typical NWO shtick, it really hurt that match, I think that match don't really need, if it was in the previous match, in the tag team match, that's fine, but Rick versus Scott, no. I think Scott doesn't really need to be part of the NWO, or rather just Scott doing his own thing, becoming Big Papa Pump without be part of the group. So anyway, let's move on to the next match. I think that match sucked, to be honest. It was just too much shit with the NWO, and it was a really no payoff of the feud between Rick and Scott Steiner. So moving on to the next match. So the next match, this is a match between NWO Black and White, and NWO Red and Black. I'm referring to NWO Hollywood versus the NWO Wolfpack. The battle of the two outsiders. We got Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash. So, the NWO Hollywood, the Black and White, been feuding with the Wolfpack since the late spring, early summer parts of 1998. So at Slamboree of that year, you had Scott Hall turn on Kevin Nash because Scott Hall was part of the Wolfpack. Suddenly he ended up turning on his fellow Wolfpack member, for that former fellow Outsiders member, and kind of reunite with the NWO Black and White. And in this time period, they kind of expose and exploit the personal problems of Scott Hall. His drug and alcohol problems he sustained in his career before his death in 2022. Yep, they did the whole last call Scott Hall storyline. The build up to this, he had Scott Hall in bars drinking, and I think it was on Nitro that he ended up puking. Wow. I don't like this story. I know, like I hate this. I hate when pro wrestling exploiting really someone else's personal problems, whether they're addicted to alcohol and drugs. It's very tacky and tasteless. WWE is the first one to do that. Great example. 2 years earlier, they did this storyline with Jerry Lawler exploiting the personal problems of Nick Roberts. That was tacky. And then in a certain time period in 1998, they did it with Animal, because Animal had problems with substance of drugs. That was terrible. Recently, WWE did a storyline exploiting the personal problems of Jeff Hardy. That is just it goes too far. It's just tacky. And also TNA did it a decade later with Rhino, but I don't like it. It's just addiction is no laughing matter, whether it's alcohol, drugs, gambling, whatever. It's just very tasteless. It's just fucking tasteless, man. Why they did that, man? Because Scott Hall in a certain time period in that, he's dealing with drugs and alcohol problems. It's just sad, he just died last year in 2022. He's trying to go to the straight and narrow. Unfortunately, it really consumes him. I think years before his death, he was missing or something. I'm not too sure. Anyway, the match between Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Before that, Scott Hall was grabbing a glass of vodka. It's not water. It's vodka, and he threw it in the face of Kevin Nash. Nash was blind for the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes of the match. Scott Hall being down Kevin Nash for a bit. And then you got the doctors and the referees trying to clear the vodka around his eyes. It stings. It's got some type of acid in those alcohol drinks, whether it's vodka or gin and tonic. I'm not too sure. I don't really drink those type of beers. I prefer drinking lager. Yeah, Scott Hall says he did the hey yo, get out of the ring, blah blah blah. Anyway, the match between Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, the outsiders explode. Not good. It's funny. Early this year, I reviewed SummerSlam 1994. In that match, you had Scott Hall, aka he was Razor Ramon, taking on Diesel. He used to be, taking on Kevin Nash. They had a good match in SummerSlam 94 between Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall, and Diesel, Kevin Nash. They had a good match. That was in 1994. Fast forward in 1998, they had the worst match in their careers. It was not good. Like I said, exploiting the personal problems of Scott Hall. Very tacky. Anyway, it was a bit boring. It was basically punch, 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 punch. Did I mention punch, punch, punch compared to that match in 1994? Because at the time in that match at SummerSlam 94, Diesel was the IC champion. Razor beat Diesel for the belt. That was really good, man. That was good. It was a bit boring in that match, but that was way better than this match. It was boring. It was just the crowd did not the crowd did not care. I think people just don't want to see the outsiders feuding. That was the biggest problem. I'll get to the whole breaking up the tag team division was a bad mistake later on. Kevin Nash did the funny part, he did near the corner, he did some shots at the corner. He says, "You want another one?" Wham! Wham! And also he did Kevin Nash did the drinking gesture towards Scott Hall. And ended up doing the suck it chants, it was getting popular at the time. Yeah, referring to DX, even though the Clique forming one of the best factions in professional wrestling history at the time. You got Triple H, Shawn Michaels formed DX, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash with Hulk Hogan form the NWO. It makes sense. Anyway, so nothing. Razor. No, I keep calling him Razor, but Scott Hall. I don't think he hit Kevin Nash with the outsider's edge, but in the end, Nash hit Scott Hall with the jackknife powerbomb. Instead of pinning Scott Hall, he left the ring. So Scott Hall won this match by a countout, and that was it. Like I said, there was no payoff of the Rick and Scott Steiner feud, the Scott Hall Kevin Nash feud, the battle of the two outsiders members. There's no payoff because they end up reunited, so that was a whole waste of time. Like I said, I don't think the people just don't want to see Scott Hall and Kevin Nash feuding, the outsiders feuding. And like I said, I think they broke up too many tag teams in WCW in that time period. They broke up the Steiners. You had Stevie Ray be part of the NWO. Broke up Holland Heat. That was a big mistake because at the time Booker T was feuding with Chris Benoit over the TV title, testing the waters. But that was a big mistake. They broke up the outsiders. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes because the previous year they had one of the best tag team division they ever done. And fast forward 1 year later, they broke up 3 of the most good tag teams: the Steiners, the Holland Heat, and the Outsiders. It's just what it is. I think the Blue Bloods are no more. I don't think there's it's compared to the WWF on that certain time period. Their tag team division was not quite great. They got better in 99-2000 with Edge and Christian and the Hardys and the Dudleys, but it's just breaking out a tag team division. They had established tag teams in that company. I thought that was going in the wrong direction. So the match between Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, terrible. But let's move on to another match. And also, this is another match revolved around the NWO Hollywood versus the NWO Black and White, aka the Wolfpack. This is for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. Bret the Hitman Hart defending the belt against Wolfpack Sting. I'll get to more of Bret Hart as a heel shortly. Bret won the belt in August. I think it was August. Anyway, Reigns. I'm on Wikipedia, by the way. Going forward. Bret won the belt in August. On the 13th of August, 1998 episode of Thunder against Lex Luger. Bret, as a heel, they ruined Bret Hart. He debuted in WCW at Starrcade the previous year after he came out, leaving the WWF in the anticlimactic way of the Montreal Screwjob. He turned heel in the springtime to join Hogan in the NWO Black and White. Even though he's not an official member of that group, it was kind of like a satellite member of the NWO. People don't want to see Bret, joining the NWO. He's prefer feuding with the NWO because Bret and Hogan really hate each other in real life, because going back in 1993, because Hogan refused to put over Bret because of his size. Anyway, the build up to this is revolved around him and Sting. You thought Sting and Bret are friends, but instead Bret turned on Sting. Like I said, it's still on this whole NWO Black and White versus NWO Red and Black. Like I said, I know it's Hollywood versus Wolfpack, but there is no payoff. There is no payoff between the Red and Black and the Black and White of the NWO, because in the start of the next year they end up forming this super group that is just no payoff. no fucking payoff. Anyway, so the match between Sting and Bret Hart sucked. The match absolutely sucked. Sting came out with a goatee, you know, like a full goatee, like the mustache. You know, he got goatee around his chin, but like the mustache part of the goatee. Very weird. It looks like he didn't grow it on his own. He looks like he painted it or like drew it on his own. Look like he's got like a full grown. It's very weird to see Sting with a mustache. Anyway, this match sucked, but I thought on paper it could be a good match, but unfortunately it's not. It was boring. Bret was being the chicken shit heel, walking around the ring, taunting the fans. I think he decked the referee. Sting hit Bret with the Stinger Splash, but instead he kind of misfired it. He ended up hitting himself on the ring post, knocking himself out in the process. And then Bret hit Sting with the bat, and then locked him in the sharpshooter. And also, Bret came out wearing, like, I think he hit Sting or the referee with a pair of brass knuckles. It was black. Anyway, so Bret won this match, retained the United States title. By the way, he ended up dropping the belt to DDP the next night on Nitro. But, yeah, Bret, I think this is totally against Bret's character, you know. Seeing Bret being the chicken shit heel, using foreign objects, using the bat to win his matches. That's totally against the Bret character. Like, Bret is a good heel. Like, going back to, like, in 1997, like, this is the same heel Bret, you know. Between heel Bret in 97 to heel Bret in 98, I think with heel Bret in 97, he pulled up a fight against Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, the Patriots. You know, you don't see him using foreign objects. He want shenanigans. He win by hook by crook. And fast forward in 1998, he's like cheating, like using objects and being the chicken shit heel. It's just like, wow. And Bret lost so much momentum. You know, they ruined Bret for shit, man. You know, I said to myself, you know, I think Bret going to WCW was a big mistake of his career. Maybe it has to do with how Bret's going to fit the Attitude Era. Beats me, but in WCW, you know, he's just, you know, he was United States champion. He ended up becoming the world champion the following year. To be honest, you know, they had another match. I think he had a one year later at Mayhem. I prefer that match at Mayhem way better than the match at Halloween Havoc. You know, despite all that bullshit with Luger, I think Sting and Bret had a good match because they both were babyfaces back in 1999. Compared to this match in 1998, it's just Bret being the chicken shit heel. It just makes Sting like a joke. Anyway, this was the last time Sting becoming Wolfpack Sting because I think he was stretched out, and I don't know if he suffered a concussion. After that, he got hit on the head with the ring post, or maybe he took some time off. Next time we see Sting wearing the Wolfpack gear will be in TNA 12 years later. Yeah, this was not good between Sting and Bret. On pivot, it would be good, even though both Bret and Sting were the best you could say one of the best wrestlers of the 90s. And also, they both got the same finisher, the sharpshooter versus the Scorpion Deathlock. Unfortunately, the booking kind of ruined it. So, moving on to this match. This is a high-profile match people are going to see. And you see the picture you see on your screens right now. We got Hollywood Hulk Hogan taking on the Warrior. The WrestleMania 6 rematch. So, travel back to 1990, WrestleMania 6, Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, the Ultimate Challenge. Warrior beat Hogan for the WWF Championship of the World Wrestling Federation title belt, even though because at the time he was the Intercontinental Champion, did the Ultimate Challenge. You know, it was basically the passing of the torch. You know, you thought Warriors could be the next top star. Unfortunately, Hogan and Warrior hate each other. This was after WrestleMania 6. As Hogan belittled the Warrior, saying you cannot hack it as the top guy. I don't want to get into it, so that was in 1990. So fast forward of May of 1998. the Warrior showed up in WCW, because before that he had some death rumors back in the day, you know, before he died, but this is before his actual death in 2014. You had the Renegade. Unfortunately, that's just an Ultimate Warrior knockoff, played by Rick Wilson. Anyway, so he managed to make his triumphant debut in WCW. Hogan, like, bragging like he's the wrestling god. In the whole months leading up to Halloween Havoc, they completely ruined the Warrior. You know, like, have him came out of you had Smoke. They kidnapped the Disciple, who was part of the NWO. Now he's part of the One Warrior Nation. You have the Trapdoor, that kind of like ended the career, or really killed the career of the British Bulldog. That was that Fall Brawl, by the way. It's just kind of like ruined the Warrior. And also, here's the coup de grace of this build up to this. You got the mirror angle. You know, Hogan seeing Warrior through the mirror. The fans in the screen seeing the Warrior behind the mirror. Hogan see it. The only person did not see Warrior behind the screen, behind the mirror, is Eric Bischoff. Bischoff said to Hogan, "Are you nuts?" It's just completely stupid, you know. I can understand why the Ultimate Warrior is the WWF's creation, even though he's been doing that gimmick since the Territory days. But it's totally against the Warrior's character, you know, of smokes, mirrors. It's something like the Undertaker's gag, not the Warrior. It's just completely dumb, and kind of ruined the Warrior in the process. Anyway, so the match between Warrior and Hogan sucked. People say it's one of the... I heard about this, not just the show, before I'm watching it and reviewing it for this channel, but I heard that this match is the worst wrestling match of all time. Broad statement, or the worst WCW match of all time. Hard to really say about this. There have been worse WCW matches before and after this, but it's got to be in the top 10. Both guys are way past the prime. Hogan's way past his prime. Hogan was in his mid-40s. Warrior, Jim Hellwig, was in his late 30s. Like, they really hate each other. You know, they end up patching things up, like, in later years before the Warrior actually passed away. But back then, they didn't really work together. They're working in a slow rate of the match. They just don't want to work together, you know. It really dragged this match down. No payoff. Fucking no payoff. It was boring. They did the test of strength. I was completely bored. You know, like, I prefer that match at WrestleMania 6 better than this match at Halloween Havoc. It's just not good. And then you got the typical NWO stuff. You know, I think you had the Giant, Vincent, Stevie Ray came out to help Hogan, its leader, or co-leaders, because the main leader is Eric Bischoff. And also, the build-up to this, you had Hogan and the NWO beating up Hogan's real-life nephew, Horace Hogan. I'll get to him shortly. Here's the coup de grace. The first coup de grace, actually. The first crappy coup de grace is Hogan. Hogan grabbed like a kit. He's about to set the Warrior on fire, trying to throw a fireball in the face of the Warrior, but instead it backfired, and the fireball kind of blew up in Hogan's face. Hogan was bleeding. That was got to be one of the notable botches in professional wrestling history. You know, like Mankind threw the fireball in the face of the Undertaker in 1997, same as the Undertaker hit, and vice versa with Taker hit the fireball in the face of Paul Bearer, and they did it perfectly. In this, not so much. And the second coup de grace of that shitty cake, the crap cherry on the crappy cake. You got Horace Hogan came along, and then you got Bischoff grabbing, he kind of put Nick Patrick in a headlock, and then you thought Horace Hogan helped the Warrior beating his nephew Hogan. I'm referring to Horace and Hogan. They are both uncle and nephew, but instead you thought Horace trying to help Warrior beat Hogan, but instead it was a swerve. Horace Hogan hit the Warrior in the back with the chair. Hogan pins Warrior for the win. And afterwards, you know, I hate this type of thing. Like, hey, I'm gonna beat you up, and then all of a sudden, I'm gonna pretend like I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna make sure you're gonna lose that match, but instead I'm gonna help you win the match. I hate that. It's just dumb. It's like speculating that he wants to be part of the NWO, but instead he's now part of the group. Because Horace debuted in, I think it was that Spring Stampede in 1998, he was part of the Flock. Now, ever since the Flock is disbanded, and now he's part of the NWO. I don't get it. And then, here's coup de grace number 3 of this shit cake. I'm referring to Hogan and Warrior. After the match, Horace trying to set the Warrior on fire, spraying the fire liquid around his body. You got like Duck Dillinger and other security guards stopping him of trying to kill the Warrior on live TV. And that was it. Man, that's got to be the worst match of the night, Both guys are way past their prime. This is Warrior's first match since 1996, And it's their first match together since WrestleMania 6 back in 1990, 8 years ago. It's just like, man, it's just ego and politics really brought this match down. And like the Steiners and the Outsiders feud, and also the feud between the Wolfpack and the Hollywood of the NWO, no payoff. And also, the only reason why they brought Hogan to WCW, so Hogan get his win back, like scratching the 8-year itch, or itching, scratch that 8 years itch. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, he's there to scratch that 8-year itch, and he completed that, in that horrible shit show. It's funny, like 2 matches in those 2 back-to-back Halloween Havoc shows. A horrifying match between him and Piper inside of the cage, Age in the Cage. That was just like a live action promotion of that year's Starrcade. And now, fast forward 1 year later, Hogan is in another shit Halloween Havoc match against the Warrior. And also, I forgot to mention he had a feud with the Giant a few years earlier in 1995. So Hogan's track record in having bad Halloween Havoc matches continued. But anyway, as for the Warrior, this is the Warrior's final. This is his one and only WCW match he had, because I think it was 2 weeks later on the 9th of November's episode of Nitro, or maybe it's the next night. It's vice versa, man. He appeared one more appearance on Nitro, cutting a promo, get beaten down by the NWO, and that was the end of the Ultimate Warrior, not just in WCW, but in professional wrestling altogether, until the match against Orlando Jordan 10 years later in, I think it was Spain or Italy. And then 5 years later after that, he promoted WWE 2K14, and then again inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And then the Raw after Mania 30, and then 2-3 days later, I think it was on a Tuesday or the Wednesday, he passed away, man. It's just really, wow. In the final few years of Hogan in mainstream wrestling, shit in the bed in WWF in his second run, or third run, because he left in 1991, came back in 1992, left again for 4 years. I say shit in the bed in the WWF for the third time in his third run in the company, shit in the bed in his one and only run in WCW, that match against Orlando Jordan in Italy or Spain, promoting WWE 2K14, and then inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, then the Raw after Mania 30, and then his timely death in, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of April of that year. It's really sad, because next year marks the 10-year anniversary of his death. It's really funny, the final few mainstream moments of the Warrior is just shitting the beds in WWF and WCW before the good part of getting inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, even though he patched things up with Vince and Hogan before his timely death. But anyway, I'm glad they never put it in the main event. I'd be like, holy fuck, please no, man. But no payoff. Let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is for the undefeated. This is also it's for both. It's for both. It's both for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and the undefeated streak. Goldberg defending the belt against Diamond Dallas Page. Goldberg won the belt in July at the Atlanta Dome in Nitro when he defeated Hogan for the belt. This was like a week before Bash at the Beach. So Goldberg is really, at this moment in time, he's got the rocket strap on his back. He's got to be the top star of WCW at this moment in time. DDP had the rights to face Goldberg. He won the War Games match at Fall Brawl the previous month. You got the two biggest babyfaces of WCW at the time, and you fought on paper. You know, this is work on paper, a good match, and it is a good match. Here's one kick about this. You know, while the match about to air, unfortunately, it was cut off before the match kicked off. You know, it has to do with, at the time. Right now, it's you see wrestling shows with 3.5 hours to 4 hours, but back then you have to do a pay-per-view only lasts for 3 hours because the pay-per-view, the main event was cut off. The pay-per-view was cut off before the main event because it was too long. It was bad for the pay-per-view providers. You know, it's good for the people who attend the show, but when you buy and watch the show on TV, they got screwed. You know, if I was Bischoff right now, I wish they called the pay-per-view company, go, hey man, you know, we're doing our main event, we want more time, or even, they should have like done more time, they should have managed their time management they need to do. Maybe like cut off some matches and cut off of the Nitro Girls. If they'd done the Nitro Girls segments once or twice in the show, that'd be fine, but doing it 4 times, that's just, come on, overkilling. You know, it was a 12-match show. That was the reason why this main event was cut, because it was too long. Anyway, I'm glad to see it, you know, because I've watched it on the network. But anyway, the match between DDP and Goldberg, this was good. You know, both are the two biggest babyfaces. I think the fans more leaning towards DDP because DDP got the heart and soul of the fans. Goldberg is just an undefeated monster. They both lock up, you know. They got in each other's faces. They did like the collarbone, is it the elbow collarbone tie up? They end up falling outside the ring together. The match was good. I found out it was 10 minutes long. You know, I wish they had more minutes. You know, even though Goldberg working longer matches do not help him. He's more of doing squash matches. But I think with DDP, I think it might work because DDP is very athletic. You know, both the same height, you know, 6'3", 6'4". Even though Goldberg is just a static monster, DDP's, you know, with the athleticism, might work with a longer match. Anyway, so Goldberg trying to hit DDP with a spear. DDP got away. Goldberg ran his shoulder near the ring post in the middle turnbuckle off the ring. And then he managed to hit DDP with the spear, and in the process he kind of dropped himself on the head. You know, he kind of hit himself in the head while hitting DDP with the spear. You know, how the fuck he never got a concussion after that, you know. And also, typical Goldberg matches, you know, in this time in WCW, he kind of locked in his opponents with leg locks and arm bars. He kind of locked DDP with the arm bar. Anyway, so yeah, Goldberg hit DDP with the spear. Going to hit DDP with the jackhammer, but instead selling the effects of the spear, and at the same time DDP blocked the jackhammer attempt, hit the diamond cutter. It took about 2 minutes until he's struggling to selling the effects of the spear, trying to climb and crawl towards Goldberg. He about to pin Goldberg, trying to end the streak and become the world champion for the first time. Goldberg kicked out. You know, I think DDP, the diamond cutter, it's got to be one of the best finishers that inspire Randy Orton to do the RKO, because that was a really good finisher. The diamond cutter, it's a cutter. You know, once DDP hit that finisher, it was an information, a standpoint move, a standpoint finisher. When DDP hit that finisher, you're finished. But I think they kind of suffered. It kind of lost the power when Goldberg kicked out. But since DDP, you know, he's struggling trying to crawl towards Goldberg to get the pin, it kind of softened the blow. Anyway, so DDP was going for another diamond cutter attempt. Instead, Goldberg managed to hit the jackhammer onto DDP, pins him. Goldberg remains undefeated and retained the World Heavyweight Championship. I think this is the one and only time that Goldberg main event at WCW pay-per-view while he was the world champion. I might be wrong about this, don't quote me on it, but in the end, Goldberg and DDP kind of like show respect to each other, and that was it. So yeah, like it was. I call it match of the night, man. You know, when DDP hit that diamond cutter onto Goldberg, that has got to be the biggest part of the night. You know, people want to see DDP defeat Goldberg to win the world title. We'll get to that part more a bit shortly. Going back to when the pay-per-view, the main event was terminated the broadcast. I feel like at the time, I done my research there, they got refund. Let me see that they actually got refunds. So this show received about 310,000 pay-per-view buys. Let me see 30, 40, or even 50% of the people asked for refunds. That WCW, I think they lost a lot of money that yanked out of their pockets. And they're not going to keep the money because I think that the people who watched the pay-per-view at home, the home audience who watched the show got cheated out of the main event. You know, yeah, it's a lot of money that they're lost and hard to keep. So anyway, so I think they probably got a discount, or not a discount. They kind of showed this main event the next night on Nitro, and also I've done my research that the Nitro after Halloween Havoc was the final time that Nitro beat Raw in the ratings. It got me thinking with DDP. I think DDP beating Goldberg on this night would be a good thing. It was a satisfying way to end the streak because Goldberg 2 months later he ended up losing to Kevin Nash at Starrcade. It was a shock at the time, but at the same time it was so anticlimactic. You know, Goldberg get tasered by Scott Hall, dressed up like a security guard, and then Nash hit the jackknife onto Goldberg. But if DDP beat Goldberg, that's got to be one of the biggest moments in WCW history. And also back here, like I forgot to mention this, when the main event was cut off, was got to be one of the biggest blunders, not just in WCW history, but got to be in professional wrestling history. You know, I explained more minutes ago, but with Goldberg losing to DDP won't be bad. It will be a good way because DDP won't win his first world championship until the following year at Spring Stampede in 1999, because at this moment in time, WWF was breathing down WCW's necks, you know, because you got the whole McMahon-Austin rivalry, you got the rise of The Rock, the pushing Mankind at this time, in this certain time period, you know, because if they really pull the trigger on DDP being Goldberg for the world title, end the streak, that would be the biggest moment. Maybe the times will turn for WCW. Maybe instead of, maybe WCW will still gain a 2-foot lead over Raw in the Reigns War. Maybe what might be, but it's the biggest what if, if they decide to pull the trigger. We don't know, man. It's just kind of like I say, it was probably one of the biggest blunders of WCW's history of the Reigns War, because it's leading up to another biggest blunder in the start of 1999. I don't want to get in it in this video, but besides that, man, yeah, I think if Goldberg wins, if Goldberg loses, that'll be a satisfied way to end the streak. Have DDP, because DDP was over at this point. He turned babyface in the start of 1997. He was feuding with the NWO the whole of 1997 into 1998. If they did that, pulled the trigger on a new star, and they should have really struck when the iron was hot, and DDP was hot at this moment in time. They should have done it, man. Like I said, the following night he ended up beating Bret Hart for the US title. I think that's more of a second place prize. So I'm trying to get not controversial. It's basically a second place prize. For losing the world title. I think it's kind of a decline at this moment in time, because DDP at this moment in time, he's he's kind of like a top star at this moment in time. He's kind of past the mid card already, man. I feel like it's is, you know, give him in the second place prize is a bit of a demotion. Like, you know, like I say, he win the world title again. He win his first world title in '99, but it's just what it is, man. But anyway, so my final overall reign of WCW's Halloween Havoc 1998, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. Is it a good show? No. Is it a terrible show? Not really. It's a subpar of a pay-per-view. Like, you've got your good stuff, your bad stuff, and the okay stuff. The okay stuff, you've got, like, Raf Ming. The tag team match, you know, Rick Steiner, Buff Bagwell versus Scott Steiner and the Giant was okay. Alex Wright versus Fit Finlay was also an okay match. But, by the way, I'm not going to put the main event cutout in the bad. To be frankly, it really do nothing for me, because what I said is 2023. This is not 1998. I actually saw the actual main event when I on the network. But the bad is the bad, man. Like Brett versus Sting, Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner versus Rick Steiner, Lodi versus Perry Saturn. And also that coup de grace shit match between Hogan and the Warrior. But the good is the good. You got like the opener, Jericho and Raven for the TV title. Disco versus Hoovy. Disco versus Billy Kidman. And also the main event between Diamond Dallas Page versus Goldberg for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Not on the same level as Halloween Havoc 95. But this is, like I said, a subpar Halloween Havoc show. A massive downgrade than the 1997 show. You had one of the best matches of all time and one of the shit matches of all time in wrestling standards. So, anyway, so what is your thoughts of Halloween Havoc 1998? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash that button, click the like, click the bell. Subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. Be part of the Central Unit for more wrestling videos and more. Next time, on the WCW/NWA pay-per-view review series. Like I said in the start of this video, we're in the month of November. This November marks the 40th anniversary of a true classic show. I'm going to review the very first Starrcade, even though it's not a pay-per-view, it's a closed-circuit television event. It's the first Starrcade event. You got Ric Flair versus Harley Race, Flair for the gold. That'll be later on in November. Until then, this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later, folks. And that's my review of Halloween Havoc 98. I'll give it thumbs down, not